Hi, this is Steve.
This is Bob.
This is Jay.
We are Alpha Quadrant 6, a science fiction review show, and in this season, we are reviewing the science in science fiction.
And in this episode, we're going to review Project Hail Mary. This was a story that was written by the author Andy Weir. We interviewed Andy when he did The Martian. He crowdsources his movies and his scripts. He gets help from scientists. He gets help from knowledgeable people. It's freaking awesome. Like, his process works really well because his science and his books are fantastic.
Yeah, he tries to do hard science fiction, and he writes in such a way where the science is a character in the story, right? It is part of what drives the story forward. And he knows when he's doing a gimme, like he knows, like, all right, this is as hard as I could be, but in order to make the story go forward, I have to do this one thing.
And this one's got more gimmies than The Martian, for
Yeah,
example,
definitely.
for sure. But they're fascinating, they're creative, they're interesting, and it gives us something to talk about on this episode, right?
This movie, though, a quick review. The movie is adorable. It's intelligent. It has such a warm feel to it. I haven't quite seen a movie like this before. Like, this is like man versus nature, I would say, is the
part of it,
is the thrust of it. But
it's also a buddy movie.
It is a buddy movie, and this is a great movie to bring your kids to. My 10-year-old daughter saw it, did not want to go, thought it was going to scare her from the preview, and she ended up laughing and having a great time the whole time.
Yeah.
And if you saw the movie, still read the book. The book goes into more detail. It fleshes out the movie tremendously. I mean, I get that, having read the book first and then watching the movie, frequently throughout the movie, like, they're just glossing over this huge area.
Yeah.
But you can't go into as much detail in the movie,
not.
which is why books are usually this are usually better. It's definitely worth reading the book, even if you saw the movie.
Worth a read or worth a listen, as narrated by Ray Porter, who was one of the best narrators on the planet. Either way, it's a fantastic book. And even if you have no interest in reading the book, if you are into sci-fi even a little bit, see this movie. It's just a wonderful movie.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, it's worth seeing. It's really good. My only takeaway for me in terms of having read the book first was that I wish there was a little bit more of the, like, sciencing the crap out of something that as there was in the book. But I understand they needed to make this more of a buddy thing. They needed to make Rocky endearing because he has no face. You got to make him relatable in a way that will affect people, and it really did. It really,
I think
really cared about him.
The movie could have used
it.
10 minutes more of a little science exposition. It could have explained things a little bit. I
agree.
I have a higher tolerance of that. And they just completely glossed over some major science plot elements that were in the book.
We say it all the time, though. I mean, when you're telling a visual story like that, like the pacing, there's so many things that come into play that really good plot that takes time could kill, and I get it.
All right, so you saw the movie without reading the book.
That's right.
Were there points in the movie you're like, how is that working? Like, did you have questions?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You wouldn't think your enjoyment of the movie might have been enhanced with a little bit more explanation?
No,
here and there?
I'm with you. I would really love that. I would go. I would like to see a half an hour more. But in general, for a general audience, you can't put a kid in front of that movie and have them,
science the crap out of
Yes,
stuff.
I don't know. If you do it well, you can get away with it.
Look at The Martian. They science the crap out of a lot of things, and that movie kicked butt. I mean, so it can be done well. But still, wonderful, basically must-see movie.
Well, let's delve into the science.
Let's do it.
Let's start with the big
Yes.
Big new component of this movie, the astrophage.
Probably the most important character in the entire movie, because the astrophage, this microbe that is causing the problem, is actually, it's the cause of the Earth and other stellar systems. They're putting the life that might live around them in jeopardy, and it's also the savior. It's also used to solve this problem. So the astrophage is fascinating, super creative. But what's the science with this guy? So people have compared it to like a fungus. It's a microbe, and the life cycle is interesting. Either it's on the surface of the sun, absorbing heat, turning that energy into matter, and then using that matter to change it back into energy to propel itself to a source to a planet with carbon dioxide where it could breed. So this is that's the life cycle. Let's go an onion layer deeper. How is this actually working? So it's somehow creating neutrinos. Mm-hmm. It's converting the heat directly into matter, equals mc squared. That whole thing. It's converting it into matter, and then it's then it's converting it back into energy, releasing it as infrared light, the Petrov line they call it, and that's how it's traveling, creating essentially a photon rocket using light, which has momentum to propel it at ridiculous speeds. So that's kind of like that's the life cycle. But where does the science really break down? The biggest way it breaks down, and even Weir himself said, this is what he completely made up, and he was very proud of the fact that you had to go down to the quantum level in order to find this problem. But he calls it super cross-sectionality, and that idea is that this microbial life is completely opaque to all forms of energy, essentially. Remember, he's trying to look inside of it. He can't look inside of it. That's the cross-section, the super cross-sectionality that he's talking about. But the thing where it gets really egregious is with the neutrinos, because neutrinos can famously go through 7 light years of lead before actually interacting or hitting anything. And that's because neutrinos don't interact with the electromagnetism. So it only really interacts with the weak force and gravity, of course. So that's how it's like a ghost-like particle that can go through anything. So somehow this microbe is making it in such a way that it can't get through the cellular membranes. So it's building up until it has what each microbe has about 1.5 megajoules, which is a lot. I actually did a back of the envelope calculation. That's 100 septillion neutrinos would be required in each one to convert their mass, which is very, very tiny. That's why there's so many. There's a lot.
Man,
very little mass.
It's just making me think now, like, of course, this is a huge spoiler. Everything about this, what we're going to say, are spoilers. Like after they get the bacteria that is going to save Earth, basically because it can kill the microbes. Yeah. But those microbes are super useful, man. Like whatever they're made out of.
The Talmiba.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
No,
or the astrophage.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to extinct the astrophage on Earth.
They made a propulsion engine out of them. And also,
so we can breed, in the book, you can breed them.
You could block neutrinos with whatever they're made out of.
I know. Yeah. Oh, it's an immensely useful, I mean.
We just want them to go away from the sun.
Right. Go away from the sun. I mean, you're using them to create basically a torch ship, a torch rocket, which is like the holy grail of rocketry. They can travel at significant fractions, 94% the speed of light. This is ridiculous. And all right, so the other big problem with the astrophages is it's thermodynamics. The thermodynamics has a lot to say about what's happening. The biggest problem, as far as I can tell, is that there doesn't seem to be any need for a temperature, gradient, an energy gradient. Because if you're creating a heat engine like these astrophages really are, you need to have a cold reservoir so that heat can flow, and there doesn't seem to be any flowing of this heat energy. It just takes heat, and it does work and creates energy, which is basically impossible according to thermodynamics. So that's another big problem.
Do you have a problem with these astrophages living in the surface of the sun, which is millions of degrees?
Yeah, but if you assume super cross sectionality, nothing's getting in except what it wants to take in. You know what I mean?
Even the heat.
Infrared radiation, it could block that, right? I mean, there's multiple smaller problems. The two biggest ones is the super cross sectionality and thermodynamics. Those are the big boys. But it's still super creative and fun. And I wish something. Well, I don't wish something like that would exist, because then we might all die. But as a tool, as incorporating that into technology, what else could we do with it that we haven't even, or that Weir hasn't even thought of? But there might be a sequel. So who knows where that's going to go?
You could make a super weapon. That would be remember they melted this whole casing of metal.
Incredible, but also ridiculous. Because if you could imagine the energy that you would need to expel to melt that block of metal that fast, it would basically take out the entire facility you're in. I mean, there's no containing that amount of heat over that short a period of time. That was another thing that took me out. Like, really? I mean, that fast is kind of ridiculous.
It's pretty cool, though.
And talk about a weapon, Steve. If you can create a torch engine, that's a weapon unto itself. Yeah. Just the exhaust could vaporize.
Great. More ways for us to kill each other.
Yeah. So what are you guys' thoughts? I mean, to me, this is the biggest gimme for the entire story.
This is a quintessential gimme. Right. This is what we mean by the gimme. If you looked up gimme in the dictionary, it would have astrophase, for example. It is absolutely
critical
central and necessary for the story.
Yep.
And it is, it tries to operate within, physics, sort of, but it says, all right, we're just going to assume that this astrophage can do this thing.
Yeah,
I
And-
agree.
Right?
Yeah.
And don't think about it too much.
Yeah, this one isn't very hard. So,
Yeah.
astrophage in Hail Mary is
a
a
gimme.
gimme.
All right.
What's next, guys?
Let's talk about the other huge life form in the movie that I think gets a lot of attention. That's Rocky,
Of course.
Rocky.
which is the Eridian.
Hey,
right?
yo,
So-
rock.
So when Ryland Grace goes to Tau Ceti to see if he could somehow find a solution to the astrophage problem, which is eating our sun, he, to his surprise, runs into an alien spaceship that also has a lone occupant. It's from Eridani, so it's an Eridian, and
Isn't that, well, Rocky's star is Spock's star.
yeah, and
Right?
I think so. Eridani.
Yeah,
Right?
it
Is
is.
that
It
Epsilon,
is.
Epsilon Eridani is where Vulcan is in the Star Trek.
That
Right.
can't be a coincidence.
I don't know.
That's awesome.
So Rocky is what I like to call a truly alien, which is wonderful in science fiction. We have so many humanoid aliens.
Oh my God.
I know Star
He
Trek
doesn't
is
have
the
a face. How
worst
awesome is
for it.
that?
They had to retcon it multiple different ways. Like, why are there so many people in, in the galaxy? But it's good to have, like, to really try to make an alien completely alien.
Mm-hmm.
And so Rocky is first of all, it has pentasymmetrical, right? It's pentasymmetry. So it's 5-sided symmetry, like a sea star.
Yep.
So it has 5 appendages, which are all function as legs and arms at the same time.
And they have fingers.
Like just 3, kind of.
Yeah.
And it with a central, body. And it has a silicate rocky exoskeleton.
Which is dead. It's actually.
Yeah, it's
not-
rock.
Yeah, it's rock.
Yeah, hence the name Rocky. But he has living organs inside of him. And he evolved in a very different environment than humans on Earth. So his comfortable environment is over 400 degrees Fahrenheit, has about 5 atmospheres of pressure, 1.5-ish G, gravities, and mostly ammonia, like 90% ammonia. And he's comfortable in that environment. He would die in our environment, and of course we would die in his environment. And Andy Weir specifically said that's what he wanted to have, like mutually incompatible environments.
And Weir was interesting in that he first created his planet
Mm-hmm.
and then said what kind of life
Would evolve.
could live or could
Oh, God, that
evolve
is so
on,
cool.
which is a great way.
What a
A
process.
great way to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
it.
yeah.
I love it.
And 1.5 G, this is probably a coincidence, but that's probably the maximum surface gravity that you can rocket off of
Yeah.
using chemical rockets. Anything, if it was 2 or 3 Gs, like,
Nice, that's right,
how are you going to
that's
get off the
right.
surface? But interestingly, so there's a heavy, thick ammonia atmosphere on the planet, emits no light through. So there's no light on the surface of this planet where they evolved. Therefore, they don't see. Now, he can't see in that he has echolocation kind of thing. So,
Right.
and we actually, in the movie, I like the fact that in the movie they showed us what Rocky is seeing, right?
Was
so
critical,
it's obviously no color. He can only see 3-dimensional things. He can't see pictures or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why when he went into the VR room or the screen room, he was like, "This room is boring." Yeah, because you're not
couldn't see
seeing
anything.
the different colors.
Oh, I didn't put that together.
Yeah. Quick question: couldn't infrared get through? No radiation is getting through. Not even infrared or something,
I guess not.
right? I guess yeah, because
So maybe if there's a little bit of infrared, it's not worth seeing with.
And what's he eating? And it looked like he was eating rocks.
Yeah.
'Cause it-
I don't think it was rocks. I mean, yeah,
But
well,
it
it
was
wasn't
hard-
anything
it
we
was
would
hard to
consider
tell what
food.
exactly he was doing.
was hard
It was
to tell.
grosser. It was grosser in the book. In the book, it was
Yeah.
it was gross, and even Rocky thought it was gross, but in the movie, he thought it was wonderful. And, whatever.
All right, so you have an intelligence that evolves without the concept of sight, right? And their science develops without the concept of radiation. They don't see EM radiation. They don't see stars, right? They can't see the sky. So they're very advanced in engineering, but there's aspects of physics that are completely missing from them. I like the fact that on the trip on the trip to Tau Ceti from Eridani, the rest of Rocky's crew dies. He has no idea why they died. Do you remember from the movie how they died?
Absolutely, yeah, radiation.
They died of radiation. They had radiation that they had no concept of.
Yep.
And he just happened to be in a part of the ship that was shielded from radiation, I think by the astrophages.
Right.
So again, it's interesting because you have this intelligence without certain concepts. So I think humans were more advanced in certain aspects of science. They were, the Eridanis were more advanced in engineering and other parts of science. So it was interesting. They added to the buddy sort of aspect of this. They really could only solve this problem together.
Right.
Neither species really had all the tools necessary to do it by themselves.
And Weir specifically did that because he looked at history to see when we had clashes of culture in our past, and in a lot of cases, one culture was more advanced here, and another culture was more advanced here, and he wanted to kind of replicate that.
That's the way it would be.
Yeah.
Right. And the other layer here is that Ryland Grace I remember just from the book too that in the movie had written a paper about life without water, and Rocky proved his hypothesis, which was very unpopular scientifically.
Yeah, definitely in the book.
Yeah, because he evolved. There's no liquid water, obviously, on the surface of a planet that's 400 degrees, right? It would all evaporate. So how plausible do you think Rocky is, given all of that?
I mean, it seems fine. I mean, look, I'm not a biologist. You are, Steve.
But this is
an exobiologist.
Xenobiology.
As an alien concept, though, it was very fleshed out.
Yeah,
so to speak.
But he doesn't have any
rocked
flesh.
out.
It was very rocked out. Like they put an incredible amount of time into the details. I mean, I was even there's so much to learn about Rocky outside of the book and the movie too.
Yeah,
because there's more information.
Yeah, he has organs.
Yeah,
and he has a hot side and a cold side.
Yep.
And that temperature difference
there you go.
is what he uses to power his muscles.
Right, it's like pistons.
Yeah, it's like more like pistons than anything else.
And he does have water in his body, by the way.
Yeah.
Because that water
it's like steam power.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, why not?
It's creative. We don't know how plausible it is.
We can't
we have
really
no
say.
example of it, anywhere. It's beyond any extremophile that we have ever encountered. But, and again, if you're going to make something truly alien, you're going to have to go beyond the bounds of known biology. So, how do you evaluate it? Is he breaking the laws of physics? Not that I could see anywhere. Is it really weird biology? Sure. So, for me, it's somewhere between soft science and gimme. I think a lot of Rocky is soft science, where it's plausible, but just going beyond what's known.
Right.
And he's assuming certain things, so there might be some gimme aspects of it. So it's for me, it's kind of a mixture of both, and it's perfectly fine.
I'd say more soft than gimme though.
Yeah,
Because
I could be persuaded to that.
Yeah, I might go with that as well.
All right, you want to vote then? All right, so the biology of Rocky the Eridani is soft science. Oh, we got two soft science, so that's
no,
the vote.
I agree. It's soft.
All right,
I just couldn't help myself.
But let's pivot to the more intelligence of Rocky. So how human or alien do you think his intelligence was?
Well, this brings up the language situation for me. He seemed very intelligent. In the movie, they portrayed him almost childish. You know what I mean? He had a very copacetic, childlike. He wasn't immature, but he just seemed like fascinated by things and
endearing.
Very sweet, very sweet personality. Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but in order for the two of them to communicate with each other, first of all, we don't have a data point on this. We have no idea what an alien language would be, but one thing that we do know is it's a brain that did not evolve on Earth, didn't grow up in the physics of Earth. Very, very likely the functioning of an alien brain, whatever it is, would be nothing like a human brain, other than maybe understanding the physics of their own planet.
Okay.
Wait, let me keep
all right.
going.
And when you're done, I'll tell you how that's addressed in the book that you didn't get to see.
Okay.
But the language thing in the movie, of course, they couldn't do it as deep as the book went, where they're trying to learn each other's languages. They begin the conversation with mathematics. Apparently, this has become the standard way we're going to talk to aliens.
I think it's reasonable.
Common ground. You got to find common ground. Yeah. Math is common ground.
And I think the first thing they communicated to each other was what was it? An oxygen molecule? It was a molecule.
Yeah, he made that. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, from my view, because I didn't read the book, it very much seemed like they couldn't talk, or there was a little bit of maybe understanding and then fully communicating with each other.
They time spliced.
They did time splice it. But my question isn't, I'm not upset about the time splice, because I understand in pacing of movies that they had to do it. But the reality of it is, it could have taken them, if at all, it could have been decades of research for them to actually communicate on the level that they were communicating.
I don't know, decades. I mean, you think you only need a couple hundred words to get across most basic ideas. They're not having deep philosophical discussions. They're like, give me that thing over there. So, and I think, what did they say, 500 words? That's by the time we got to the point where they were just communicating freely.
I thought it was more 253, but
Well,
yeah, on
yeah.
the order of hundreds of words that he
Yeah.
had, and they were able to communicate.
I think that's reasonable to get to in a month. I think it was like in the book, it was
Oh, geez,
more
was-
specifically
okay.
like 30 days.
I don't
before
know.
They got to
I
that
don't agree
point.
with that. I think it would have been a lot.
All right,
a lot
so
more
here's-
difficult.
But getting 250 words is one thing, but
Concepts.
putting them together in a way that is comprehensible, that's the thing that, Rocky's mind could have been so divergent, so different, that there was no common ground like culturally on how
Yeah.
words are put together and what it means, which is tough. I mean, you got to be able to communicate. So that's the thing you have to achieve in the
and-
story. But realistically, I think that there wasn't enough stress on the fact that it was an alien thinking going on beyond there. He seemed like he came from France,
Totally,
and
and
otherwise they had so much in common that they were able to communicate, which I think necessarily wouldn't have been there.
Rocky is the opposite of Trien's, because when they communicate, they're communicating multiple things at the same time through the frequencies that 'cause with us, when we talk, we're talking, we're saying words, right? But when Rocky talks, it's literally like multiple conversations are happening at the same time because it's layered. And this is not in the movie, by the way, but it is in the lore, which makes it even more complicated because Rocky would then have to change inherently the way he communicates to talk to him.
Right.
But again, it is a gimme. That it has to be a gimme.
Well, Weir did try to address it in the book to this extent.
Go ahead.
What was the probability that we would encounter an alien race that we were somewhat compatible with, meaning that our technologies were roughly equivalent and they were a technological species in a
Right.
way that we can engage with. And he said it wasn't random because we both went to Tau Ceti. There was a selective process there. So
Right.
of all of the surrounding stars, I mean, you don't have to go out that far. If you go out 100 light years, you have thousands of stars. If a race was incompatible with the engineering necessary to get to Tau Ceti, they wouldn't be there.
Right.
If they were so advanced that they could fix the problem at home, they wouldn't have needed to come to Tau
Right.
Ceti. So there's this kind of window, this self-selective filter, that only races that were in a certain range technologically and were compatible enough that they could send a ship there, something that we
Right.
recognize as a ship. So he did address it. It wasn't random that we encountered an alien that was roughly at the same stage of
Yep.
technological
Right.
development.
And
as
Rocky was there for a very
Like
long
50
time.
years.
Yeah.
50 years I
Yeah.
read that he was there. So that makes their meeting.
they're
more-
long-lived species.
Yeah.
So that anyway, does that cover it enough? I think I appreciate the effort to think through that.
Yeah.
This is not a completely random selection of aliens.
No, that's fine.
this was some kind of filter in place.
Again, Andy's doing exactly what we want
Yeah.
science fiction writers to do. We want them to think about it,
Yeah.
try to apply as much science to it as possible. And if if there's gaps in it or whatever, it's a movie, it's a story.
Well, it's a story. I
fine.
mean, yeah, of course, because what are we going to do? Say, well, chances are we would be intellectually incompatible with the alien. There wouldn't have been much of a movie if
Right.
we encountered
Right.
an alien that we could not communicate with at all.
Of course, and that you could apply that to any movie. Well, chances are that Jaws would never have gone to that particular beach.
Right.
He could have just stayed out in the deep ocean. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
There has to be coincidences for any story to happen.
Yeah, but again, we're presupposing a species that could build a ship and fly to Tau
Yeah, of
Ceti.
course.
So it's got to be within a certain. It constrains it. Does it constrain
Yeah.
it enough that it's reasonably plausible that using math and engineering principle we could come up with some kind of common interaction? I think that's fine.
I think it's
personally.
fine, yeah.
So what are we leaning towards then in terms of the language transfer? More soft?
No, I say it's a gimme.
I don't think it's a gimme.
Well, we don't have a data point. It has to be a gimme.
No, it doesn't have to be a gimme.
Of course it does. We
No,
don't
but
have-
remember, that's the definition of soft science. It's within. It doesn't violate any laws of science, but it's extending what we
reasonable
know.
extrapolation.
So reasonable extrapolation
With a little luck thrown in.
And he
Right.
made an effort to explain why it was maybe not as lucky as you might think it is, because there is that filter in
Right.
place.
I just don't agree that they could have communicated with each other in the time frame that the movie had it in. I don't think so.
I mean, the time frame itself, was. I don't think once you get a toehold, like once you say, all right, we can.
Yeah.
Once you get that first toehold of, explaining some basic mathematical concepts like equals and whatever, and then you start to build on that, I think that can go with two intelligent beings can go pretty quickly.
And remember, I think Rocky was very
he was
intelligent.
brilliant.
He was
They
incredible.
made it pretty clear that he was brilliant.
He didn't need any machine translating anything for him like Grace did. I
Yeah.
mean, so
Well, he was a mathematical genius.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you factor in genius level intelligence, I think that could also helps a bit too in acquiring the language skills. that he
okay,
needed.
all right. So what are we going to call it?
So this, all right, good. So this is say what it is. Language.
This is the ability for Grace and Rocky to communicate with each other.
Okay. Going to call it?
Yes.
It is
Soft
soft science.
Soft with a leaning towards a gimme.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so what's next? All right, guys, speaking of Eridani technology, and related to this idea of where Weir wanted the Eridanis to be really advanced in something that made us look like, pikers. And that's the xenonite metal, the ultra light, ultra strong, kind of like Krell metal or Predator metal, that was absolutely critical for any of these things to succeed. So this was interesting. If you look at the science, Rayland points his doohickey at that material, and it's like, oh, there's xenon in here, xenon atoms. And that doesn't make a lot of sense, because xenon is a gas. It's a noble gas, meaning that its outer electron shells are filled, so it's not really going to interact much. But the word much is doing some interesting work in that sentence, because it can. There are compounds of xenon and fluorine, xenon and gold. They will form compounds, so it does happen. It's extremely implausible that you're going to get a material made of a lot of xenon that is super strong and super light. I mean, that's basically, no one thinks that's going to happen. So this is definitely, I would say, in the gimme range for the movie. But if you think about it, Weir's intention here was that under the intense heat and pressure, that weird chemistries happen, which is not implausible, because things happen at ultra intense pressures and heat that we can't. It's kind of emergent. It's kind of unpredictable, so we don't know exactly what would happen.
Yeah, but it's possible that it might take extreme heat and pressure to get the compound to form, but once it forms, it's stable, even in the vacuum or near absolute zero.
Now that's
not implausible at all.
This is what he was inside, like the sphere that he made. That was the
whole everything was made of xenonite. It's like their universal
culture.
material.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
The whole ship was xenonite. Yes, the bubble he made was xenonite. The containers he made for the Talmiba were of xenonite. Everything.
Interestingly, his bubble ball thing had astrophages incorporated into it as a heat sink.
Interesting.
Yeah, they even had in the book, I think, they had astrophages around the crew compartment of Grace's ship to protect it from radiation, which is a great idea. I mean, if it's
totally opaque.
if it's opaque to radiation, man, what a great shield that would be for any
right,
any
because
radiation.
Otherwise he would have woke up dead.
Yeah,
Dead.
right.
When he got at the other end of that trip. Yeah, you can't spend 10 years or whatever he was in a little capsule, at the tender mercies of interstellar gamma rays and whatever, cosmic rays, whatever's going on out there. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you needed some really effective shielding.
So okay, so let's vote on xenonite then. So
well, I'm going to try to convince you that I think it's a gimme. I think the xenonite's a gimme.
Yeah.
I would say it would be a whopper. I mean, so a lot of
no.
I'm just saying a lot of science fiction, when they need a super material, they say, oh, it's an unknown element.
Unobtainium.
Yeah, and I said that's a whopper to me, because we know all the elements, right? You can't just invent new elements. So Weir didn't try to make it.
You can, but go ahead.
We had this.
I know.
You can't. There's never going to be a stable, really super long-lived, new element, especially one that's super light and everything.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like impossible. That's impossible based upon the laws of physics. To me, that's a whopper. I'm assuming he knew that. He said, okay, if I need this magical material, we'll just make it to be like this really exotic compound, but not invent a new element. That's great. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
that
I
took
do.
it out of the whopper zone into the gimme
Absolutely.
zone.
So what are we going to vote on this guy? So the Xenonite in Hail Mary is a
Gimme.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty solid gimme.
Yeah.
Okay. While we're here, we're talking about the ship and protecting
Yeah.
the ship. One thing about the ship pulled me out for
which
a
ship?
little while. This is Grace's
The
ship.
Hail Mary.
Hail Mary. So this ship is traveling, on average, ultra relativistic speeds for years.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, it is speeding up, and it's going to do a flip and a burn to decelerate, which is what you're going to have to do
Right.
to get there as fast as you can. And you could accelerate the entire way. Potentially, but then you're going to zip by it. There it is, and it's gone.
Yeah.
You got to slow down, right? So that ship is going to need some kind of shielding, probably multiple layers of different types of shielding in order to protect it from hitting even dust motes. Because when you're traveling at something like 90+% the speed of light, when hitting a dust mote would be like a bomb going
You
off.
need a deflector.
You need whatever.
And they don't exist.
And I mean, no, we could have created something. It could have been shielding, could have been made out of, regolith or ice or whatever. You would need multiple meters worth of something that we like.
Something ablative, probably.
Yeah, something ablative, something like rock or metal or something. Or something could be thinner if it was a lot stronger, but you would need something. Some people have said that you could have some type of solar sail up front that gets hit first and it turns it into plasma so that the ship would be safe, or lasers or something, some way to deal with that. And there's none of that at all. So the odds of that ship surviving, ultra relativistic speeds for that long is basically zero.
Yeah.
That's basically zero right there. It's not going to survive that long without major damage or utter destruction.
That's just completely ignored.
Utterly ignored. And, whatever. Nobody really takes that into account in any sci-fi that I'm aware of. It's one limitation that people don't appreciate, and something that if we're ever going to be able to travel that fast, and I don't think we'll ever be able to hit 94% the speed of light.
Yeah.
Even using matter antimatter, it does not look promising
it's
to
a
go
whopper.
that fast. So no,
Well, let's think about it. So it's pretty much ubiquitous in science fiction. They just
Right.
ignore this problem.
it's a trope.
It's a science fiction trope. It's like the radiation, and at least props to him for dealing with the radiation. That's another one where people just ignore the fact that there's a limit to how long you could spend in space without significant shielding.
Right.
You get the cumulative radiation dose. So he dealt with the radiation, which is great. But yeah, the interstellar dust at relativistic speeds would be a problem. What we would need to do, and there's probably some science fiction out there that does this, but what you need to do is literally clear a corridor, right? You would have to plow through with something that uses high energy lasers or something to clear out any debris between point A and B, and then you could zip along that corridor very quickly. But you've pre-cleared it out.
Right. Relatively easy to do in your solar system, right?
Yes.
But not easy to do when you're going out 11 light years. They had no time to waste.
Oh, definitely
Unless
not in this movie. They
yeah,
could not.
yeah.
I'm just saying
Oh, that's
theoretically.
interesting. So in the movie, they could have had a ship that was in front. That was maybe they were even moving at the same speed, but that was its deflector.
Yeah, you could have had two ships. One was basically just the shield ship that would have
Yeah.
cleared things away, and
Very cool.
nothing could survive inside that ship. But they didn't mention that. They didn't.
No, it wasn't there.
Right.
That
So,
would have
yeah.
been a nice little touch, though. if
That
you
would
said-
that would have been interesting. That would have been really interesting.
All right, let's call it.
But I'm not sure. I'm not sure where
Whopper or
I
gimme.
Yeah, where I lay on
I
this.
think. All right. Well, so I think this is a deeper discussion we can have very quickly. What do we consider the very common, near ubiquitous science fiction tropes?
In general.
Do we consider them to be whoppers or gimmies? And I don't know.
Is it really a trope? Because I would say that it's not common, because most science fiction is like FTL, warp drive, portals, gates type of travel. Very few are actually traveling within the realm of real science where it's sublight and you're not going to, when there is no FTL. So that's rare. Can you call that a trope?
Is it that rare?
If it's a
What
rare
about
subset? It
What
doesn't
about
happen that-
impulse drive in the Star Trek universe?
How fast can they go in?
It's
impulse drive?
sublight,
Yeah.
but you can go.
Deflector shields.
They have
They have
yeah.
deflector shields. Yeah.
That's true. Trek has it, but give me two more. Give me two more sci-fi movies or books that
Well,
where it's
Expanse.
sublight's boring. Give me a sublight's boring.
The Expanse, they go pretty fast. But it's
Yeah.
all within the solar system. But even still, even more debris. There's more debris within our solar
Yeah.
system than in interstellar space.
Yeah, they don't give that any.
They don't talk about that
They
at
don't
all.
talk about that either.
You're going.
How fast are they? I mean, those are torch ships. They're going, but they're not going ultra relativistic.
No, but they're going really
Yeah,
fast.
they're going ridiculously fast.
Otherwise, it would be years to get from point A to point B, which they get to within days or weeks.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this is if this is trope worthy.
It's just almost universally ignored.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that alone is
But what?
Edges
But
it
my
into
point
trope.
is, does that make it a gimme or a whopper?
I mean, we're basically calling it for all science fiction.
Yeah,
movies
pretty
then,
much.
You know?
I think it's a whopper.
yeah.
Okay,
It
that's
wouldn't have
fine.
taken much to deal with it in some interesting way.
Well,
that
yeah.
Just because it's a trope doesn't mean that it's
Yeah.
a whopper trope.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay, let's call it. All right,
Okay.
Bob.
All
Lack
right.
of shielding.
So yeah, so shielding on the Hail Mary.
I can't say it if your hand isn't up. Got to do the hand, man. Karate chop it.
Mr. Handman.
Mr. Handman.
All right. The shielding trope in Hail Mary is a
Whopper.
Whopper.
There you go. Are you happy
Along
now?
with all,
I'm happier.
pretty much all other science fiction.
We need to do a hat tip towards the respect that gravity got in
Yes.
this movie. It was treated with such respect that, I mean, come on, when the ship is traveling, when it's accelerating, that's your gravity, right? Because
So
acceleration
you get artificial
is
gravity through
basically
acceleration.
indistinguishable. Yeah. So
And then when the engine
there's
shuts
that.
off, he's in 0G or microgravity.
0G, and he's got a special part of the ship that extends and rotates to create gravity through centripetal acceleration is one way to say
Yeah,
it, I guess.
so-
I love that. I think the idea is
It's
fantastic.
super complex.
all hard
but
science.
Great, all super
Except for
hard
this
science.
one thing.
Yes, let's see if yours is the same as mine.
The radius of the rotation
Yes.
is way
Yeah,
too
a little
short.
Too short. Yeah.
Right. So that means that if you're not rotating in a big enough circle, then the gravitational force difference between your head and your feet are going to be super disorienting. Your head could feel so lightheaded that you wouldn't even be able to really
You
have
also
any
get
balance.
You have vertigo.
Vertigo, dizziness. So that's you can't have
How
a
big-
small enough radius.
How big would it have to be?
I don't know what the
used to
I
know the answer.
know.
the exact what is
It was somebody calculated in order to have it so that most people would not notice
right.
the spin aspect of it. It would feel just like gravity. You need to have a radius of 1 mile.
Oh wow.
That's massive.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Right.
way bigger than I thought.
Yeah, it's way bigger than you thought. So that little ship, no way. They should have just made that cable super long, right? Not it was really short. That was tight.
Yeah.
He would be vertiginous. And remember, he said many times in the movie, "I'm not an astronaut."
Yes.
Right? You can't say, well, he was selected to be able to
Yeah.
deal with that. Chances
'Cause you
are
can get
he would
used
have
to it
been
to a certain
super
extent.
dizzy in that spinning gravity.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the only thing that keeps it from being rock solid, hard
Mile,
science fiction.
A mile. Damn, that's big. That's way bigger than I thought.
Yeah.
I mean,
Which is why it's not going to happen anytime soon.
almost every time I've seen that concept used has been wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, every time. 2001, it's a short spinning. On The Martian,
Yeah.
it's a small spinning radius.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. You need to have it. Even 1 mile is you can't tell the difference at all. But you would have
Yeah,
to.
you could-
You'd have to be half a mile, or you have to be pretty big,
Still half
so
a
for
mile.
most people to tolerate it pretty well.
And
Yeah.
you
Right.
could just hire just really short people. That might help a little bit.
Or some people are less susceptible to it than others. You have to
Yeah.
have a huge selection process. I'm actually very susceptible to it. You guys know Mission to Mars and Disney?
Yeah.
That spins you around. I got super dizzy on that ride. I couldn't do the
Yeah.
artificial gravity.
Yeah, you couldn't go on a Hail Mary, man.
No way.
No way.
I'd die.
I'm more immune, but yeah, I think such a short radius
Right.
would have me as well. All right, so then what was this? Was this is this Whopper or is this
No.
is
I
this
think
gimme or
if we're gonna say all the dealing with gravity
In general.
in general
is
I want to say it's hard science.
Hard
hard
yeah.
science
With that one
with
little
tweak,
footnote, with a
but
little
not-
footnote.
but not worthy of bringing it to gimme or
No.
Whopper.
I think it's hard
Yeah,
science.
yeah. Oh, I agree.
Okay, so
I agree.
gravity is
Hard
Hard
science
science.
with a
So-
footnote.
So
yeah.
brava to that for that because
All right.
gravity gets no respect in most sci-fi.
All right. So we're going to do an overall.
for the movie.
If we average out the whole movie, like all the science in Project Hail Mary, obviously we're a little bit across the board. I think
Right.
there's sort of like a curve where it's mostly soft science, couple of gimmies, one little whopper, which every science fiction has, some hard science. And we didn't talk a lot about the hard science because not much to talk about. But I think on average, it sort of averages out to basically soft science.
We did. Yeah, we had a lot of votes for soft science.
Yeah.
More so in this movie, I think, than in any of the other ones
Yeah.
that we've done.
And that's
which
a
is
testament
interesting.
to Andy Weir, like making this movie be solidly in soft science is impressive.
And that, I think, it's not a coincidence. This was a great book, great movie, because it's good science fiction, respects the science, doesn't treat it like magic, doesn't
Right.
just thoughtlessly toss out whopper after whopper. It actually drives the story. It becomes an element, something to overcome, right? A challenge for the characters, and it makes better writing. Makes for far better science fiction.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so the overall movie is
Soft
soft science. All right.
Good job, Andy. We really loved it.
Yeah.
I
And,
want more.
and at the same time, it was just a great movie, great
Yeah.
book, very
Yeah.
enjoyable.
Yeah.
So we highly recommend it.
All right, guys. So thank you for watching this episode. If you want to help support the work that we do here, the fun, whatever you want to call it, if you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/Alpha Quadrant and the number 6. And we will see you next week.